Well, we might be live, but we're certainly not in New York, and it's certainly not Saturday night. But I'm excited to have another one of these fun conversations about Saturday Night Live's 50th anniversary, talking to a few former page friends that if you are watching this one for the first time, you don't need to catch up. There were no cliffhangers, but we did an episode recently where we were joined by a few of my friends who had been NBC pages in the past. And this week is no different. I'm joined by the great Andrew Tavani, who I was a guest on your show at one point, but I don't believe you've ever actually been on one of my shows, Andrew.
Hey, Christian Bladt, old friend. Good to see you. Yes, I have not been on. You were on my podcast. It was great to have you on. In fact, I was just looking at the Weekend Update background behind you.
Yes.
And I think that might be from around the time period you had your joke on. Is that sort of the era?
This is a newer one, but yeah, I did.
Right.
I do have actually a picture with the set from when I had a joke on.
Yes,
It's interesting. The thing about my joke is that it's hard because it has a word that we don't use anymore, and it's not one of the worst words that we don't use anymore. But my Weekend Update joke has the R word in it, so it's interesting times when it was fine to be on television in 19. Well, actually, that was in 2000.
2000, yeah.
And so, but
that was SNL 25. Christian.
Well, SNL 25, that was it was the 1999.
Actually, that was
season.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, here another fellow former NBC page, Ron Motta, last seen on the Blackcast for episode 561, a very special episode where we talked about some very special episodes from our favorite sitcoms. Ron, I hope you're not bootlegging this episode with a giant tape recorder and your overcoat like Rerun from What's Happening.
When you invited me on here to celebrate a very special anniversary, I thought it was going to be the anniversary of the bicycle shop episode, which passed a couple of days ago. So, I'm happy to be here to talk.
If everyone wants to check out Blackcast 561 video or audio, we start off with the bicycle shop episode of Different Strokes, which it's very special indeed. So this is a different kind of special. And I want to kind of start the same way I did the earlier conversation. I'll ask you first, Andrew. It's kind of your earliest memories of Saturday Night Live, long before you're a page or anything. When do you remember I saw the sketch, I saw the show. How much of a part of your life was it? And maybe it wasn't anywhere near as much as mine because you got outside and played sports and things as a young man.
So it was not as much a huge part of my life when I was younger, but I do distinctly remember my first experience with Saturday Night Live. I was sleeping over at my cousin's house. Right. And so when I was in my house, I was raised, we were in bed very early, but we were at my cousin's house one Saturday night and we got to stay up late, and I had never even heard of Saturday Night Live. My cousins are like, "What? You don't even know about this?" I had an older cousin and I was like, "No." And we watched it, and I don't remember a whole lot about the episode. But the one thing that really stuck in my mind was the clay car. Do you remember that? It was like one of the SNL used to do the
Adobe
commercials. Yeah.
The Adobe,
the Adobe car. Yes, that's it. And I think it was Phil Hartman was like the main character in it. There were a couple other people in it. Forget who else was in it. Phil Hartman narrated. He's in the driver's seat and everything. And the thing that really stuck out was he was talking about all the fun stuff about the car, the cool things about the car, and they get into a fender bender, and he just gets out and uses the clay to fix the bumper, and all of a sudden it was right back to normal. It was just very,
that's interesting because that's there's so many fake commercials, and they had such a quick montage of so many of them on the 50th anniversary special. I don't tend to think of that one very often, but
there it is. Wow, look at that.
Yeah, it's almost like I do this professionally, Andrew. I quickly looked up the Adobe car. I hadn't thought about that fake commercial. Well, Phil Hartman in so many of the great commercial parodies. My favorite has always been Colon Blow, where he's
oh my god,
Yeah.
Yes, that's
So
another
many,
good one.
so many bowls of cereal. What about you, Ron? What are some of your earliest memories of SNL?
So my earliest memory of SNL, I'll never forget this. I was 8 years old, believe it or not, and my sister was 2, and we had this babysitter, Tommy Yeager, who was like in 7th grade, and he was the coolest babysitter in the world because he used to let me eat pizza at like
Oh no.
11
Hey,
o'clock.
yeah.
HBO.
Ron,
So one night,
your audio is getting a little bit of some hits on it. So we can try again. I'll let you start your story over. We might
oh,
have to
sorry.
have you no, it's just the perils of Wi-Fi. Um, we'll let you start again, and maybe we'll try to if it continues to be a problem, we can always try clicking off the camera. But
Okay.
so you remember being 8 years old, seeing
Yeah,
Saturday
I
Night
was
Live.
8 years old. Yes, I was 8 years old. My babysitter was a 7th grader named Tommy Yeager, and he watched my sister and I. And he was like the best babysitter in the world because he let me eat pizza at like 12 o'clock at night, midnight, watch R-rated movies on HBO. So I was so excited when he came to, when he came here. So to babysit. So one night it's 11:30. I'm not supposed to be up, and he looks at the clock and he said, "Hey, Saturday Night Live is on. Let's watch it." And I said, "What's that?" And my first SNL memory is, and I remember this vividly, Bill Murray on Weekend Update running down the Oscar
Sure.
nominees.
Yeah, he would do that every
And
year. Yeah.
yeah, and I had no idea what most of those movies were, but something was just funny about it. So, and then fast forward, I really got into SNL when I was like 14, the first year of like Dennis Miller and Dana Carvey, and when they came back in 1986 from the weird year, as they call it.
Yeah,
So yeah,
as other people call it, the terrible year, the disastrous year. It's definitely quite an anomaly. And
Yeah.
the cast you're speaking of is the one that's near and dear to my heart.
Same here.
I think in general people are fond of the era they started watching the show, but and as I said previously, all credit to the original cast. There's no show without them. But to me, this is the show firing on all cylinders, and
Yeah.
the era of greatness is like 86 to 90, maybe 91 for me personally. But it was tremendous, and I started watching regularly during this cast. And if I wasn't up late, I would record it. And it's the same era that Nick at Night was airing these best of Saturday night half-hour reruns of the original cast. So I was kind of getting to see that stuff, and it all happened around the 15th anniversary. So there was a lot to get excited about and see all of that. So yeah, it was definitely a great time for the show, absolutely, and especially following the weird year, which if people haven't seen that Peacock documentary series, at least check out episode 4 about the I literally was having a conversation about SNL with some other parents, and I was talking about that season, and one of the dads of one of my son's friends was like, Joan Cusack was never on Saturday Night Live. And I just had to turn to my wife and I'm like, if I say that someone was on Saturday Night Live, were they on there? And she's like, yeah, I'm sure he's right. She didn't know I was right, but she's like, he's talking about it with the authority.
Did you bring up Robert Downey Jr.? Because
of course. Robert Downey Jr. Anthony Michael Hall.
Yep.
Yep.
They're like, no, he wasn't. I'm like, yes, he was.
Yeah. This is the way that I know stats from my youth, the way that Tavani knows Mike Schmidt's stats, but still, this is what was important to me. So getting the opportunity to be in that building, like the first time I'm at 30 Rock, I go to a Conan taping, and it was amazing to just, I'm like, I know this building, I've seen it on my TV for so long, and SNL's there. I knew what an NBC page was because you would see them sometimes at the page desk at SNL, an assignment both Ron and I held. And you would see it sometimes even when Letterman was doing late night, you'd see that page desk. So I knew what that was. I don't think I knew what it was called, but I was like, how do I get one of those ugly ties, And, and, look, I mean, we had a number of different ugly ties when we were there, but look at these handsome gentlemen.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no,
I think, Christian, that is right after they introduced the tie. I seem to remember when I started, you were allowed to wear whatever tie you wanted. That was like the one part of your uniform you could.
Yeah. And this is before the peacock tie, which we were all given shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
Within a few months, we all had that. And I wish I didn't, I'm showing you in this photo because you're here. I had to crop some legends out of this photo. Kenny Carmen is standing right next to us.
Wow. Yes.
And the great George Tiggle.
And the late George Tiggle.
The late great George Tiggle, absolutely, who came up in our earlier conversation. So I interned at late night and then also interned at SNL. So I realized, all right, I'm not going to be a writer on these shows because I didn't go to Harvard. No one told me that I needed to be brilliant and go to an Ivy League school, preferably Harvard. So I was like, all right, let me see how I can get in. And everybody suggested the Page program. I'll ask you first, Andrew. How'd you hear about the NBC Page program?
So I had no idea about it until my senior year of college. I had a TV production course, and it was taught by a guy who was pretty well respected. And look at this. Oh my gosh. I mean, first of all, before I even get to that question, Christian, you and Adam Wade are tremendous documentarians of that time period. The amount of pictures you have, it's as though you had an iPhone on you, and
it's true.
Somehow you got an iPhone 8 years before it came out.
Yeah, well, I'm a time traveler. Ron knows my secret that I'm a Gallifreyan, but I don't like to talk about it usually. But I did have an iPhone. No, but usually a lot of these pictures are in bars, and I was at least smart enough to know that I'm not going to bring my camera to a bar, but I would always have those disposable Kodak cameras. And by the way, here's a legendary one from my place.
God. Christian, you were supposed to run these by me before.
Well, that's the only one I thought about running by you was that one. But yeah. So okay. Yeah, but Andrew hasn't aged a day. Look at him,
Yeah.
I have half the hair I had back then, at least. What was
I have twice as
in
much hair, but it's all on my back. I'm sorry. What were you going to say, sir?
Some of it's migrated down for me too. It's like a witness relocation program, Yeah. Christian, what am I drinking in that photo? What was that?
I think that drink was called Pucker. It was like a really sour drink, whatever that green was. If you actually look at it, you can see the logo there above the barcode.
Is that at your house in Hoboken too?
Yeah, the railroad apartment, Ron, that I lived in with 3 other pages in Hoboken.
Oh, wow.
The stuff of legend, that apartment that I lived in from March through December of 1999.
It really was a 5th year of college. It really was.
100%. It was. Yeah. There's a reason that all these pictures were drinking or possibly already drunk, because I described the Page program, and I'll let Andrew answer his question in a moment, but we got sidetracked. It's kind of like 5th year of college meets a summer camp. So you're at this like awesome TV summer camp, but you're all old enough to drink and possibly, let's just say make special friends there. But every month there'd be like 10 new people that were your age that would start in the program. And when you do the full year, like I did, I don't know how long Andrew or Ron did. They cycled through probably like 100 people that I got to know from that year that I was in the building. But Andrew, so then we'll ask how long you did it and how you first found out about it.
Yeah. So I did it same as you, 52 weeks. Did the whole thing till they, basically kick you out. And I learned about it, as I was saying, through a TV professor that I had who was really just considered to be knowledgeable. I don't even know what his background was, but at my school, LaSalle University, he was like the top guy. And he was like, one day, sort of late in the semester, he's like, if you want to work in television, he's like, the the best thing you can do is go get yourself a job as an NBC page, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I had no idea about it. So I actually went online. The internet was super,
You didn't Google it, but you went into Alta Vista.
I Yahooed it. I
Yahooed
it.
it.
I did. And I found something, and that's how I found out about it. And he didn't really say much. Oh, the other thing he said, he's like, basically, you just go and run and get people coffee. So I was like, okay, I'll go do that.
It's not entirely wrong. There's more to it, but that's a great one sentence.
Yeah. And I was like, all right. So I looked into it, and that's how I heard about it.
What about you, Ron? How did you hear about the NBC?
I think from my internship at Conan. I mean, I had heard of the paid program, but I had no idea what it was. So when I interned at Conan, this was, late 95 into May of 96.
Okay.
So from there, I, submitted, because I was told that basically if you intern, particularly on Conan or SNL, you were shooing for the page program. So I kept on waiting to hear, but I never heard back. So I made a lot of calls at Conan. And I had like 6 or 7 people call. I think it was Ann Jackson at the time.
Yeah.
Saying, you got to hire this guy, give him an interview. And I started March of 97. I remember that very vividly. It was when NBC had the Odyssey coming out, that miniseries.
Oh my God, yes. I hadn't thought about that since 1997, but I do remember.
Yes, yeah. And they had this special exhibit that was I can't remember where it was. I think it was one of the then abandoned shop. It might have been where the NBC tour was, where, remember when it had that giant globe, that weird globe in the middle,
yes,
of multicolored lights. So I think it was in there. So that was my first week at the page program. And I did it for just shy of a year. I think I left 2 or 3 weeks prior to my end date because I got hired on at Conan as intern coordinator, receptionist, PA, everything.
That's a bit of a catch manager. So you took it from Chris DeLuca, right?
Yes, yeah. Actually, Chris was the Conan desk page when I was an intern, so that's how we knew each other.
Yeah, he is responsible for myself, and in our past episode, Tim Sicardo, Tom Kelly, we all interned at Conan. And
actually, no, I hired Tim.
Oh, you hired Tim. All right. Well, see, there you go. But he got to know DeLuca.
Yeah, I inherited Tom, and I hired
Ron.
Tim.
We all inherited Tom Kelly. It's kind of the way it works. And by the way, this was not a page photo, but it is one that features between the 2 episodes, all people that I showed. But of course, I put the peacock over someone who is not speaking to us because he still works there.
I think I know who that is back there.
It's the great Kevin Miller. Yeah. I just didn't want to share a photo of him without him, being on the show. But
I just cannot believe how many pictures you have.
I know.
Yeah, and these are just the ones that I brought to bring to this. And what I love about some of these pictures from the late 90s, clearly I was aspiring to be a middle reliever for the St. Louis Cardinals with that goatee, coming in, throwing the high heat right out of the pen. And look, it was the 90s. A lot of things happened. So let me ask you first, Ron. So you get to intern at Conan, which was, again, my step that I did that first. At what point do you get to finally peek into the great Studio 8H in that building?
Oh, gosh. I don't remember when, but I certainly, because back then, you can go anywhere you wanted in that.
They didn't lock the studios. It's the craziest thing.
I actually went back on a contract position last year, and it was completely different. There's cameras all over the place. Yeah. There's security guards outside of each studio. The overlook to 8H, the curtains are drawn during rehearsal. So it's a lot different now, and I understand that. But back then, there weren't these fancy passes. We had paper passes. They didn't even have, as our building ID. They didn't even have our pictures on it.
I forgot about that. Yeah, there was the little peacock piece of paper. Yes.
Yeah, it was with the peacock. It said NBC Peacock, and then it had your name typewritten and what your position was. So that was it. But I just remember, I think it was the intern coordinator that had hired me, and she showed me around the building. I remember we went to 8H, and I was just like, when you step into that studio, everything seems possible. All your dreams ahead of you seem possible. And that's what I remember, just being in awe of the place.
Yeah. So. For me, we took the back staircase from Conan. A gentleman that I am incredibly grateful to, Dan Ferguson, who was a segment producer at Conan, also worked in the talent department at SNL.
I love Dan. Yes.
So he's the reason that I got an internship at SNL, by the way. I was talking to him. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to intern at SNL." He's like, "Oh really? So come with me." So we walked, across into the other elevator bank, and the whole thing. And he introduced me to Karen Nathanson (parentheses Zucker).
Oh yeah.
Whose husband was Jeff Zucker at that time. And she said, "Karen, this is Christian. Yeah, Karen, this is Christian. He's a great intern. You guys should hire him." And I could do it 6 days a week because I wasn't not coming in on Saturday. But before that, Dan brought me down. Jane's Addiction had recently reformed, and it was kind of half Jane's Addiction, half.
I worked that show.
Yeah. Well, interesting thing about that. So I went to the Thursday rehearsal downstairs and I just watched them. And I have a VHS of that rehearsal because I asked Conan writer Brian Stack, "Hey, can you put on the SNL feed so I can record it?" He's like, "Sure." Oh, that's kind of cool. Nicest guy that you could meet. But I also went to the dress rehearsal for that show it was John Lovitz and Jane's Addiction.
Yeah.
And I talked about this in the earlier episode. A few months later, when I was an intern, I made a copy of that dress rehearsal because, as we know, and some people watching may know, but not everybody, dress rehearsal is 2 hours instead of 90 minutes. Everything's a little bit longer. Weekend Update's 10, 15 jokes longer. And the great Norm Macdonald was doing Weekend Update at this point and trying out jokes that didn't make the show. And he had 5 jokes in a row that just absolutely bombed. The crickets stopped chirping. But I have this cassette, and if I was smart, I was going to say I would have digitized it, but then I would have gotten struck by the peacock. But you can hear one person laughing in the studio, and it's me. As each joke bombed worse, I started laughing harder because of, how much I love Norm. So that was the first time I got to be in there. Andrew, had you not gotten to get into that studio in particular until we were already pages?
I had never been anywhere in that building besides the lobby and Jackson's office for an interview and whatever conference room they put us in for the panel interview. I'm sure you guys remember the panel interview, right?
Oh yes,
yeah. There's a murderer's row of all-stars who made the page program on my panel. Yeah,
same here.
So I think I remember 2 or 3 from my panel coming in, and then people I just never saw again.
There's definitely those people you never saw again. Yeah, absolutely.
But so no, I had not been in there at all, but apart from that. And I remember the first time I was in Conan and SNL was, I think one of the first things I did was join a tour on our first day, right? I think they just put you on a tour so you can go and see what you're going to be doing. And I mean, my head was kind of spinning that day. I think I think in that tour we hit Dateline, we hit Conan, and then, finished up in 8H at SNL. So it was amazing.
It's very exciting to get to be in the building. And, I at least, and as an intern at SNL, I mean, I really kind of had just unprecedented, unbelievable access, I mean, I was recording episodes of some of my favorite sketches because there's a lot of downtime. So I was just like running the 3/4 inch cassette hooked up to a VHS because this is 1998. So just all that. And
you didn't have like some sort of digital video, Christian?
No, believe it or not, there was a closet called the bunk room where they had all the tapes, and our buddy Kevin Miller years later would have his office in that closet. By the way.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But so I mean, it's great fun to get to be around it. And, you get to have all sorts of interactions with cast members, some of whom are just really tremendous, and you get to know them, and it's a lot of fun. This is a bit of a running joke, this bit that I'm doing right now, where you get to know a lot of these cast members and you get to interact with them one-on-one. And some of them are some of the most wonderful people you ever get to meet. And some of them are Chris Kattan. And you just keep getting to talk to people and you get to know people and you get to go like, oh, that was pretty cool. Not SNL related, but this image that I have here is from one of my favorite things that happened as a proud Pennsylvanian, a proud Phillies fan. You lost a bet with our buddy Jay Capares, didn't you, Andrew?
I sure did. What a dumb bet I made.
This was in 1999, the year that the Mets made it to Game 7 of the NLCS and lost the Braves, thanks to a bases loaded walk by Kenny Rogers. But I'm over it. But you did bet him that the Phillies would have a better season than the Mets.
A better record. That was it. That's all they needed to do.
Yeah.
All they had to do was just have a better record. Mets ended up having a great season that year, but and the Phillies did not.
Not in 99. Yeah.
Yeah. So the bet was the loser had to go wear, the shirt of, so Capares would have had to wear a Philly shirt had it been the reverse. So I had to wear that around the entire day. Now at that point I was the Conan TOC.
Yes.
Ticket office coordinator for late night.
Yes.
And so I didn't have to wear the uniform. That's how I was able to wear that around all day. Do you want me to tell the story about what happened?
No, because this is my favorite part of the story is that you're wearing this Mets t-shirt in the elevator.
Right. So I was walking all around all day. People were like, what's the deal with that? Because normally I just wear like a dress shirt, a button down or something. And, then what happened was it was backstage not long before the start of the show. And I think Brandy Merrick was the desk page at the time.
Shout out.
Yeah, I remember her.
The great Brandy Merrick, yes.
Yeah, yes. The great Brandy Merrick.
Brandy Merrick green these days, but yes.
Yeah. So she was the desk page, and the desk page, as you guys know, and probably everyone watching, but for anyone who may not know, is there to go get the guests for one thing when they arrive. And for whatever reason, she was on some other assignment and she wasn't there. And somebody just grabbed me and was like, Jon Stewart's here in the lobby. Can you just go down and bring him up? And I was like, sure. So I go down, didn't know Jon Stewart, anything about his sports preferences or anything. So I go, I pick him up. You remember, right outside the elevator bank. Yeah. And the first thing he says to me, he's like, oh man, he's like, you're a Mets fan? And he was so excited. And I was like, not really. I just lost a bet. He's like, it's like he didn't even hear me. He's like, it's so great. He's like, I come into this place. He's like, it's nothing but Yankees fans in here. It's so good to see like a familiar face, a fellow fan. And then once we got in the elevator, I told him what happened, that I lost the bet
with the great Jason Capares.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, a part of the story that it seems like I remember a little bit better than you, not that incident. You told it exactly the way I remembered it. But you, as the ticket office coordinator for Late Night with Conan O'Brien, you also fulfilled ticket requests for Saturday Night Live. And what people don't know is that the only way to get tickets was, well, one, you wouldn't get tickets, but two, if you wanted to try to get tickets, they would do a lottery in August, and you had to send a postcard with an August postmark. If it didn't, we were supposed to throw it away. And you got to do that. Now, the majority of the audience is still VIPs and friends and whatever, all that. But I think, I don't know, we would get to fill maybe 20 tickets for dress rehearsal, maybe 10 for the live show.
Something
And
like that, yeah.
it's supposed to be a completely random drawing system. But do you remember? And the image that we're still looking at for our video audience kind of betrays a little bit of how this process worked when Andrew was in charge. Do you remember?
So is that what you're holding there? Is that you're holding a card that somebody sent in for tickets, right?
From Philadelphia, yes.
From Philly, yeah. So I think, I gave some preference to, the people from
the state of Pennsylvania. If they were from Harrisburg, they got
entire
to go.
state. I did for the whole state of Pennsylvania.
Maybe not Wilkes-Barre, but most of the other places. Maybe not Emmaus, but but not everywhere. But yeah, so it was always preferential treatment to postcards.
That year, 99, 2000, there was a surge in people from Pennsylvania visiting in the SNL audience. There were 30, I think.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I mean, it is kind of a fun part about being a page is that you would do stuff during the week, and they needed a lot of pages to work Saturday Night Live, from audience to crowd control, various other assignments. So I want to ask Ron about having the prestigious position, but other than the ticket office, did you ever have any SNL, escort positions, which sounds a lot seedier than it actually is, Andrew? Or was it just handling tickets on Saturday night, maybe? For Andrew, for that, I want to ask that first. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were.
That's for you. No. I'm going to talk to Ron in a second, but I wanted to see what your role was. Yeah.
Oh, as the TOC for Conan, you also got the what they called I was the 9th floor key, is what it was called.
Ah, that's right. That is what
you remember that role. So there were 2 keys. There was a 9th floor key and an 8th floor key. 8th floor key was actually a really primo gig because you were, you're seating the VIPs, which is cool. And there's so few down there. I don't know. Maybe there's 25, 30 people on the floor, if that.
38.
38, yeah. And and I believe that it was Joe Berg when I was doing it, and I think he was the Rosie TOC.
I believe, yeah.
That was his daily gig, and then he got the 8th floor key. Conan TOC was 9th floor. Anyway, so my job really was controlling the seating for the 9th floor, which is where most of the audience sits. And as you guys know, and I don't know if people know, and it was actually one of the things that surprised me when I was first on that tour, all those seats were former Yankee Stadium seats. They were baseball seats that I guess George Steinbrenner had donated in 76.
Yeah, because the Yankee Stadium renovations would have coincided with when they needed those. That's the couple years that the Yankees actually played at Shea Stadium while they were rehabbing the house that Ruth built. As opposed to the current house that Alex Rodriguez built. It's a different building, but in the same spot. So yeah, so you get to see those seats. It is actually kind of cool. And I mean, judging from the show on Sunday night, they still use those. Those are the same seats in there.
Yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, it was really audience load in. I had a couple of uniform pages helping out every Saturday night, and then
doing the audience for any of these shows, anybody who's attended a TV taping, there were the all important tape and holds, people's names written on a piece of tape, and you'd leave them there as long as you could. But there's a certain point where it doesn't matter whose name is on that piece of tape. It's 11:28. The tape's coming up. Let's get some standbys, which we'll talk about the standby line in a little bit. That's a source of great pride for me, the standby line for Saturday Night Live. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Also, Andrew, the 9th floor at 30 Rock was well known for being sort of an office for a lot of us. There was a lot of important business that we would specifically head over to the 9th floor just to do that business.
Okay. So you mentioned something about this in the email, Christian. I wasn't sure what you were talking about. I think I may know now.
Yeah, well, I was trying to be less subtle. Yes. We would go take a shit there.
There was that office. Yes. Down the hall.
That was our office.
That bathroom, I mean, nobody went in there.
Yeah.
I don't know how I found that thing for.
Well, but we all started going in there, and then you probably wish you didn't tell us. So
See,
Ron,
now I thought you were referring to, and I don't know if I should use should I use full names or not for people who
you could say first names.
I'll say
If you don't need full names, there's no reason.
Jenny and Scott, you may remember.
Well, Jenny Kramer, is that who you're talking about?
Not Jenny Kramer.
Okay.
Was an SNL staffer named Jenny. You remember? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I know. Yeah, Jenny.
Jenny Z. Let's call it.
I interned with Jenny Z.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So Jenny and Scott Barr
Yeah.
on Saturday nights during the show, even during the dress rehearsal, right? They had a ton of wine bottles, right? So you go over there and they'd have a cup for you and they fill you up a little cup of wine and, in between the two shows. So I wasn't sure if that's what you were talking about.
No. I was talking about taking a dump on the so Ron, you get to be an NBC page. And in our previous conversation, there were a lot of people lamenting how much they wanted that assignment. That's kind of like the Willy Wonka golden ticket of assignments, getting the 8H desk, the Saturday Night Live page desk. So when did you get it? And was it a hard fought process, or did it seem to go relatively smoothly for you?
I would say, it's very, very competitive. That's like probably, I would actually say more so than, at the time, Bob Wright's, office page. I think SNL was the one that everybody went out for. Yeah. And it was. So what I did, like how I got the page job, I called some people at Conan and had them call Ayala Cohen, who was in charge of the desk pages, to say, hey, Ron interned here. He's fantastic. He'd be a great page, SNL page. And that's basically how I got the job. I can't remember if it was for when I became a page or when I got the SNL assignment. I think Andy Richter called at one point, because he knew me. So it was one of those two. I can't remember. But that was like the one assignment I wanted. Yeah. And I was not going to leave anything on the field. I was going to leave I was going to use every tool in my arsenal to get that assignment. And I did. So.
Yeah. Interestingly, you mentioned Ayala Cohen. I'll tell a shorter version of this in this one than I did previously, but 2 desk pages for SNL with 2 weeks left at the end of the season got jobs. So they had to leave. They had to actually go take their paying jobs, and which, of course, makes sense. Maybe in hindsight, they could have, hung out for a couple weeks longer. But so there were 2 spots that they needed to fill. So as soon as I hear about this, I talked to Ayala Cohen, who I knew from when I had been an intern. And she said, oh yeah, this makes perfect sense. We'll definitely go ahead and put you in one of those spots.
Oh, that's cool.
Not knowing that the guest relations had handpicked 2 pages that they wanted to put into those spots, but didn't tell us. So there are a lot of people that I'm still friends with who were very angry at me because they thought I found out and leapfrogged someone who's a wonderful person, that I did not do that. I had no idea. They had a secret plan that they kept secret. So I didn't know that I messed up their secret plan.
So it wasn't your fault.
I got to do it for those 2 weeks. And because I did it the 2 weeks at the end of the 98-99 season, that meant that I had to train the new desk pages in September of 1999, which meant that the 3rd and final week that I was at the SNL 8H page desk was for Saturday Night Live's 25th anniversary, which I do have this photo that looks like it's not real. It looks like somebody photoshopped Molly Shannon in front of me, but I did a little escorting people off of the red carpet, and someone got that photo.
Who took that picture, Christian?
Robin Olkers took that photo.
Oh, he's a good photographer.
He's an amazing photographer. Yeah, this is actually a really bad print of it, but that's the one that I have. So I got to do that. And I think that's a great transition to talk about. You got to know the people at the show as by being the page at the desk. And Ron, you have a delightful story about a delightful person, Molly Shannon, if you don't mind sharing that.
First, I owe a lot to Molly Shannon. She, when my assignment was coming up, totally unprompted, she came to me and she said, "Hey, I would really like to write you a letter of recommendation." I'm like, hell yeah. So she's like, I'm not really sure what to write, what to do. Can you give me your phone number? And, I'll call to discuss it. I'm like, yeah, sure. No problem. So a couple of days later, I was living at home at the time. I come home. I walk through the door and my mom's like chatting on the phone. It's like, oh yeah. And I turn to my dad. I'm like, who's she talking to? My dad kind of shrugs, like, I don't know. She's been talking to this person for like 20 minutes. Like, oh, yeah. He's such a nice boy and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, she's talking to one of her friends about me. So, and then she goes, oh, he just walked in. 1 second. And she holds the phone. She says, Ron, you're not going to believe this. Guess who's on the phone? Molly Shannon. All of a sudden, I turn white, just like white. I'm like, Mom, how long have you been talking to her? And she's like, oh, I don't know. I just lost track of time. I go, tell me word for word exactly what you said to her. Oh, I was telling her what a hard worker you are, what a nice boy you are, such a great. I'm like, oh my God, my face is like turning red. So I take the phone and Molly's on the other end. She's like, oh my God, your mother's so sweet. She's so nice. I was having the loveliest conversation with her. And, even when I went back to the studio that weekend, we had a show. She was like, oh my God, I love talking to your mother. She's just so down to earth and so nice. And, and to the day she died, my mom always got a kick out of the fact that she talked to Molly Shannon on the phone. So, but that letter recommendation opened up so many doors for me. Without that letter, I probably wouldn't have gotten into MTV. I wouldn't have gotten into Playboy. So
let me just say that you worked for Playboy.
Yeah, I worked
to say Playboy. I wouldn't have gotten into
Playboy. Centerfold?
I wasn't the centerfold. No, I worked for Playboy.
Yeah.
I was a senior research editor, which meant that I was the only man in America that isn't lying when he said that he read Playboy for the articles. So, but that door, I owe her a lot, and I'll always be indebted to her, and I'll always be the biggest Molly fan. So
my old boss Dennis Miller got started submitting and getting published jokes in Playboy.
Oh, wow.
That was like the first payment.
The party joke pages. Yeah,
that's where he first started making money for jokes.
Oh, that's so funny! I didn't know.
While he was doing PM magazine in Pittsburgh, but
oh my God, I remember.
This isn't a show about him. But in a way, it's a show about sort of all of these people that you get to interact, and I did get to meet him at SNL 25. He's the only person I was excited to meet, and it's just like, I just made small talk with him, and very surreal. To 25 years later, I literally had lunch with him yesterday, and yes, it's a little name droppy, but most people who know me know that I worked for him for most of of 20 years, really. Yeah.
Was he not at the 50?
He was not at the 50th. No.
Did you talk? Was there a reason?
Well, why? I knew he wasn't going to go. He doesn't like to do stuff like that. The only one he's ever been to is the 25th. He was at the 15th because he was still in the cast at that point, but the only one he's gone back for, and he's never gone back for any appearances or things. He's just like, he did it. He's very proud of it. He's, considers himself lucky, but also fortunate, really, to have been a part of it. Fortunate to be a part of it. He loved his time there. He loves the people that he got to know. It's just, he just feels, especially now, it's just so far removed. And Dana Carvey wasn't there either, but he'd been on like 6 times this year as Biden, so it was probably enough already,
Yeah, he's another guy I actually got to interact with when I was there, and it's actually I got to tell the story. I will tell.
Yeah, please do. No, exactly.
So Dana Carvey did a guest appearance on the John Lovett's Jane Addiction show. And I remember Courtney Love shows up. And she's like not on the show. She just showed up backstage, and she's being peak Courtney Love. I'll put it that way.
It's a great way to put it, by the way.
Yeah, so this was like 90. Yeah, this was 1998. So peak Courtney Love. And the show's over, and I'm escorting Dana down to his limo, and we passed her, and she's like, "Hey, I know you. You're the church lady." And he's like, "Yeah, hi, Courtney. Come on, say, isn't that special?" And he's like, gives like a half-hearted, "Isn't that special? I gotta go." So, I shuffle him off. We get in the elevator, the doors close, and he just turns to me and he's like, "Well, isn't that special? That little lady." And he's just like launching into the church lady, and it's just me and him. And I am dying laughing. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, nobody else is seeing this, only me. This is just for me. And it remains one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, no, he's just a, unbelievably wonderful guy. And I got to know him because obviously he and Dennis were really good friends.
Right.
And he, of course, was very kind to once appear on an episode of this podcast, Blackcast 529 for anybody.
Yeah, watch this one.
Yeah. It took some doing to schedule. But I was excited to have him. Lovitz was on my 500th and 600th episodes, and I've had Dennis on a few times. So I'm never afraid to call in favors. That's how I've gotten both Andrew Tavani and Ron Motta on the same show. The same week, I had Tom Kelly on. Come on.
That was my page career. I wasn't afraid to call in favors.
No, and look, I never would have had that SNL desk if I didn't specifically call IL Cohen.
It's what you got to do.
And I left her a message, and I remember I had a pager at the time, so I got the notification that I had a voicemail on my pager, and so that's peak 90s for everybody out there.
I thought it was a text message on your iPhone, Christian.
No, well, yeah. Look, I'm telling the covers, don't blow my cover. All right? All the iPhone footage.
Is Ayala still working at SNL?
I don't think so. No, I think she hasn't in a little while.
But she was on the first documentary episode, 5 minutes, about SNL auditions.
Yeah, she has her own management company now, I think.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, she worked for ICM for a while. But she was there for a long time though. There are a lot of people stick around, once they get a gig there. So, Andrew, I'm just obviously we could tell a lot of we have probably plenty of stories that we couldn't tell about our time as a page, but there are plenty of stories that we could share about things that don't necessarily pertain to SNL. But you mentioned something that you got to do that you somewhere had pictures for, but you couldn't find them. But I think it's all right because this was after the 25th, the thing that you messaged me.
No, that was after the season finale of the 25th season. So
okay, gotcha. So in May of 2000 is what that would have been.
Exactly. Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So basically it was, so I don't know, I don't know how widely known it is. You guys know this, and anyone who's a page, I think, knows SNL throws great after parties. Terrific after parties. And I think Sandler mentioned the after party in his 50 years thing.
He did. Yeah.
I don't know if the general public knows about it, but great after parties, and then they really blow it out for the season finale, which they actually do. They take over the whole concourse of Rockefeller Center, or at least they did that year. But I'd heard that they didn't. That was sort of the usual.
Yeah, they usually would be out on what would be the ice in the winter, that whole area down there.
Down there.
I went to the end of 97, 98 after party, and I brought one of my best friends from college, my friend Shannon. And Jeremy Piven was hitting on her at the party.
By the way, the least shocking thing about that story, by the way, I was at that same season finale party because that's when I was an intern. So May of 98. The interns used to be able to go to the after parties, and we would find our way to the after parties. But I have to say, I've never been to an after party. I'd only gotten to an after party.
I didn't know there's a double after party.
Yeah, that's the 5 a.m. maybe.
I can't even believe, because like some of those after parties, I'd walk out and they would black out the place. You totally lose track of time. You walk out, it's like 8:00 in the morning, Sunday morning, and like cabs are flying by and everything. And I'm like, whoa. And I'm like blinded by the light.
Yeah. So the season finale.
Season finale. It was Jackie Chan and Kid Rock had Chan hosted. Kid Rock was musical guest. So Ron, like you did, I brought a friend of mine who was not in TV at all. You know, good lifelong friend of mine, but so he was sort of blown away by the whole thing. You know, he had a seat obviously, and he was just amazed at everything that was going down. And at the time, Kid Rock his image was very much of like a partying image, right? And he was like singing about like drinking whiskey and doing shots and stuff. So
as opposed to now, where his impression is an elder statesman,
right? Yeah, now he's Mr. Diplomacy, I think, right?
A little bit.
So
he's Secretary of State, right?
I think.
Right after the confirmation hearing. So this is like not the beginning of Kid Rock, but I would say like 2000 is like absolute.
He was on his ascent at that point.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of us who were there were like, well, Kid Rock, he's singing about drinking whiskey and whatnot. Like, of course he's going to want to do a shot with a bunch of pages. So we all went up to him. Actually, we were stalking him a little, and it was like me. I think it was Joe Berg, Kevin Miller, a couple of other people. Anyway, we got it. We finally got to him, and he was like, we're like, Kid Rock, because it's open bar. We're like, how about a shot? We came up with shots of like, I think it was Jack Daniels. And he's like, how about a shot? And he's like, you guys, he's like, I'll do it, but I'm not going to drink it. And we were like, what, kid? Like, come on, like, let's party, dude. And so we all did the shot, and Kid Rock just sort of sat there and watched us do a shot. And then we took it. He was nice enough to take a picture with all of us. And Christian, that is what I was going to try to find. I've not seen it in a long time, but somebody gave me a copy. I don't know who took that photo, but I was given a copy of it. It's somewhere.
Whenever you find it, I'll be happy to share it and let people see that this is what we were talking about. Maybe you can even come back and do a little show and tell. And look, those after parties are crazy. But finish your thought on the Kid Rock.
So what I was going to say, that is half of it, and then the other part I can only partially tell the rest of the story, which is as the night wore on, and people, everyone's drinking heavily and whatnot. The party begins to migrate throughout 30 Rock. Okay. And I don't know if you experienced this in the party that you went to there, but we ended up on the 16th floor, which is where the SNL offices are. And, I guess, I don't know if it was a surprise to me that the cast members had offices. You would think like,
because they're also writers. It's a 17th floor, but it's the same thing.
It just sounds like a very corporate thing to do for like a performer, but they each of them have their own office. So my friend, who I brought to the thing, and he, myself, and a couple of other people ended up in Tracy Morgan's office, which with a bunch of other people. And I'll just say that Tracy Morgan was more than generous that evening. I don't want to go into it.
No, that's fine.
There. Super generous, and it was just it was like, and my friend who like was not in TV was just like, I can't believe where we are right now.
Your friend is male that you brought?
Yeah.
And even though your friend was male, Tracy looked at him and said, I'm gonna make you pregnant. But in any case, by the way, your friend isn't a friend of yours that ended up marrying somebody we know, is it?
It is not. No.
Okay, I was just wondering. Yeah.
No.
It would have made sense for the story if that's who it was. But in any case,
no.
So those parties were great. I mean, I would get, again, there's a point where they stopped letting interns go, but it wasn't when I went. And there would be some of us who would have to talk out of like it wasn't even usually the intern. It was like their friend they brought, who was like, I'm going to give Lauren Michaels a flyer from my improv show. And we're all like, dude, we will kick you out. You cannot do that. You're going to ruin. I'm sure that's what happened. Somebody handed, Lauren like a mix CD or something. And then the interns, I don't think the interns should really be at the parties anymore. They shouldn't get college credit. for hanging out with Tracy in his office. Yeah, that'll be great. So, yeah. But
I'm sorry that just makes me laugh so hard. Like if you're
because
you
know these people.
If you're in the inside and someone from the outside is like, no, that's a bad idea.
It's such a bad idea. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And why? So he can go to your show and realize how much you suck.
Yeah.
Not page
you
related.
would not approach the president of the United States with a bill, that you think should be put into law. So.
If you'd said that 2 months ago, I might have said differently.
Oh yeah,
now I probably would. But and look, whatever that show was would have been amazing. It reminds me of a quick side story. After I moved to LA, we Andrew, your page class, our friend Lise was in there, and she lived out here for a while. She ended up marrying Nick Offerman's brother, and Matt is his name, and he was doing a sketch show that Tim Sicardo, my then roommate and past episode guest, former NBC page, we went to the show and we were blown away. Not, Matt was fine. I'm not trying to discount that. There were three of them. There was Matt, another guy, and then the third guy was someone that we just couldn't believe how funny they were and how good they were. And we were just like, oh my God, it would be amazing to figure out a way to work with that person. That person was Bill Hader. So Lisa's husband was in a sketch group with Bill Hader, who we saw before he was on SNL, and obviously bigger and better things than something for Inside Joke Productions was in the future.
Inside Joke, I remember that.
There was a website. Don't look for it now because it's not there anymore. But
but you guys, I think you produced at least one movie, right?
We had a couple of films. One's called So Happy Together. The other was How to Make It in New York on $15 a Day.
Yes, that's right. I remember those.
We were making movies where right before YouTube, when you didn't really have anything to do with them.
Right.
You could have posted as a quick time the size of a postage stamp, which is like the way I saw the original South Park video. So yeah, those parties, it's such an important part for the people who aren't in the cast and don't actually even work on the show. I couldn't believe it. I mean, look, they're, I remember being there as an intern, and I don't know, Natalie Portman was probably 16 at the time, and she's at the party, and I'm like, oh, I guess when you're famous, I'm not even saying I saw her drinking or anything, but it was just like, pretty sure this is a 21 and up establishment, but she's also famous. So, and not even, I didn't see her doing anything. I just was like, oh my God, that's the girl from The Professional and Beautiful Girls. Like, I know who that actress is. It's, I don't know if she should be here, but, stuff like that. And, there'd just be random people there because people who
celebrities would just show up.
Yeah, exactly. So
they weren't even in the show that night.
Yeah, they weren't in the show. Maybe they, had been on the show in the past, but sometimes it was just random people. Yeah. That was always fun to get the chance to do that. And of course, there was the gift of, if you worked Saturday Night Live, they didn't want you to take the subway home. They'd give you car vouchers, wouldn't they? And sometimes I actually used them that night. Other times. When's the next time I'm going to my parents' house upstate? But, look, when you pay people $10 an hour, you have to understand that they're going to take free food and save car vouchers that are worth a couple $100. So, Ron, so you did the page desk. Did you have any fun, surprising interactions with people that maybe didn't go so well?
I know where this is leading.
You do?
Yes. I'm sure I'm not talking out of school when I bring up Chevy Chase's name. I've told the story in the past, but, now that I've thought about it some more, he wasn't entirely wrong. His anger was just directed at me where it should have been. So this is actually the episode that Chris Farley hosted.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not long before he would pass away.
6 weeks later. 6 weeks later. And I distinctly remember him saying to someone, he had just gotten out of rehab, and he was saying to someone, you know what? I'm going to really do it this time. And then 6 weeks later, he was gone. And I never forgot that. I'll never forget that. So Chris Rock was on the show, and I'll just tell like a really funny story about that. So I had to bring Chris Rock up, and so I bring him upstairs. He's standing by the page desk. I'm pretty sure he was talking to Chris Farley. The phone rings. I pick it up, and it's Adam Sandler. And Adam Sandler actually used to call the desk a lot, just like with random, like, oh, tell Will and Molly that their sketch night was great, or oh, tell this person that it was hilarious, whatever. He was just like really, really cool. So I pick it up, and I go, oh, hello, Mr. Sandler. And Chris Rock goes, is that Sandler? Give me that phone. He grabs the phone, and he goes, bitch, when are we doing our shitty Three Amigos movie? So Chevy Chase also did an appearance on the show, and I had to bring him down to his car. So we go downstairs, and the lobby was a madhouse. There's like, the public's there, the people that just got out of the show. There were also a lot of like autograph secrets and stuff like that. The thing about it at that time was there were no barricades, no stanchions.
Right.
We literally had to go through this mass of people. Security did not help us at all. They were down there, but they did not help us at all. So Chevy's getting mobbed, and he's getting pissed at me because I'm not like, I don't know, elbowing people or pushing them out of the way. I mean, if, he gets, I'm making $10 an hour. If I get sued, I'm screwed. If he gets sued, he just does another vacation movie. So we finally get outside, and there's paparazzi all around because it was Chris Farley's host. Chris Farley was hosting the show. So, and his limo was not there, which was not and I'm asking the guys, like, where's his limo? And then finally he's like, you know what? He's like yelling at me because his limo's not there. He's like, you know what? I'm just going to go with Norman and Lori Jo Hoekstra. And she gets in, and I was like convinced I was going to be fired the following week. So the next week, it's Thursday. I go down to the desk. Ayala comes out. She's like, so, what happened last? Like, she was very calm about it. She's like, so what happened last week? And I explained to her everything. I'm like, it was a madhouse. The limo wasn't there. And she's like, look, it's not your fault. It's okay. I'm sorry Chevy yelled at you. He was probably just frustrated. Blah 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 blah. So I'm still feeling like crap because me with Chevy is like all over, like, Inside Edition and whatever. So I'm just like at the page desk, I'm just feeling defeated. And all of a sudden I hear a very quiet voice behind me go, hey, Ron. I turn around, it's Will Ferrell. And he goes, don't worry about it. Chevy's a jerk to everyone, even Lauren. And he just like kind of patted me on the shoulder and walked away. I'm just like, and I remember that, because Will Ferrell chose to be kind in that moment. So, but I will also say that I know a lot of people that have had a lot of positive interactions with Chevy Chase. So,
well, before yesterday, I would have said I never met one, but Shalako had very nice things to say about Chevy Chase. What were you going to say, Ron?
Oh, actually, interesting postscript to that story. So I think it was like I think it was actually 10 years, almost 10 years later. I'm working at Playboy, and a couple floors below us was the Vidal Sassoon salon. So it's, I'm leaving work. The elevator is like already crowded, so we're going down and people are like, oh no, I'm not going to get on the elevator, whatever. We get down, the door opens, and all of a sudden I hear this guy's like, oh, there's enough room. And he's like cramming himself in. I'm like, oh, geez, what a jerk. And I turn around, it's Chevy Chase.
Of course.
And I'm like debating. I'm like, should I say anything? I'm like, nah.
There's nothing to be gained from that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I wish this were true from the great Count Eric Connor. Christian worked at Al Goldstein's Screw magazine. I'd be living a very different lifestyle. But I did apply for an internship at Hustler. No, that's not true. But yeah, I did not know that. Now, the interesting thing is being in the building, in and around the show, you will sometimes get opportunities to be featured on screen as an extra or something similar to that. And Andrew, you sent this. Well, you posted this, and this is a spring break sketch where it's a little grainy, but this is a standard def sketch. But in the top right, unmistakable, that's you there in the background in this sketch, right?
That is me, and I think this is 2002. So you're talking not even close to digital. Or high deep quality. But yeah, this was actually a very funny sketch. It was Cameron Diaz was hosting that night. You can see her there, and it was Amy Poehler, Maya Rudolph, and Tracy Morgan plays a big part at the end of this sketch, who's not pictured here, but he was funny.
Yeah, no, I mean that's
all is credit to Josh Payne, by the way.
Yeah, well, interestingly, in a moment I want to transition to talking about the 50th anniversary special, and in part of that, I want to talk about how they brought some things back. They brought back some characters, and including the production, which the intro for Debbie Downer, of course, features our friend Schler on the right.
Oh my God, I didn't realize that.
And there she was on the 50th anniversary show. She lives out here in LA now, and a few of us had dinner with her. So that was a big celebrity sighting, but not as big a celebrity as joining us now from his car.
Oh my God, look at
that. The one, the only, Thomas J. Kelly.
Hello, guys. Hello.
Tom Kelly.
You know what's funny? I just couldn't miss you guys. I'm down at Jones Beach, Long Island.
Wow.
This is where the serial killers hide the bodies, guys.
That's not what you're doing there. You're not hiding a body, are you?
Oh no, are you kidding me? If I could afford a hooker, I'd be on a podcast in a second.
Suddenly the show's taken a real not Tom Kelly vibe, but I'm getting a Tom Green vibe. The fact that it's a handheld camera. So, Tom, a moment ago, Ron was talking about Chevy Chase, and I remember you having an interaction with Chevy Chase where the audience was kept lingering for a while you were a page at NBC, and we kind of neglected to tell this story in our first installment, and I'd like you to tell it the way you want to tell it, and then there's a part of it that I think I remember that I want to make sure that I tell. But you go first.
Because it's funny. I'm editing these stories as time passes.
Sure.
But one detail we never really talked about as former pages and ushers was what a cluster mess SNL would be for seating. Sure. And there was one day where somehow somebody let like an extra 75 people onto the 9th floor that were not getting into the studio for one reason or another. And again, my experience with SNL was very up and down for positivity. And somehow I got assigned to be on the 9th floor to help slow down the riot. And one extra detail is if you were able to get SNL tickets, 90% of the time you were some form of a big deal.
Or as we established earlier, you live in Pennsylvania.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like whatever it was. And I am now saying, guys, we gotta go. And out of the wings from where Lorne Michaels' office was, comes out Chevy Chase. And Chevy genuinely, in my mind, is coming out to just sort of make the fans feel better and not necessarily apologize, but make real people feel better that they were getting kicked out. And these people were so mad after staying online for 4 hours, whatever it was, that a original SNL cast member did nothing to assuage their anger. And and Chevy's out there and me in my full polyester blues, and Chevy says this line, "Hey guys, come on, we'll just do our own show in the hall. I could do a weekend update." And I said, "Yeah, you could do some Nixon jokes." and he goes, "Nixon jokes, yeah, that's very funny, kid," and just walked away.
So Tom just basically that's exactly the way I remember it. So
yeah,
it's like Nixon jokes.
I remember that kid.
Yeah.
No, those are the peacock ties.
Those are the peacock ties, which Andrew and I were wearing the pre-peacock tie. But yeah, and why you guys knew me at this point? Why did anybody tell me that the goatee wasn't working for me? None of you ever stepped in and said anything. And
Who says it's not working? I think
all right, I'll take that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. It was age appropriate and time appropriate. Sadly,
yeah, I guess so. By the way, sorry, Count Connor again. The West Coast critics raved about your work in the sketch where you were the extra in the background. Thank you, Eric. Well, Tom, I'm glad you're here. We've been talking about some specific memories in terms of working on the show and all that. But I do want to ask both Andrew and Ron about the 50th anniversary special, which, I think,
I chimed in on. To be honest, I was so excited you had Andrew and Ron. I honestly am very happy to even just press the mute button and just listen to the rest of the show. I feel like I was a part of it for a minute.
We'll definitely want to hear from you. Absolutely. But we talked about it on the previous episode, the rest of us, sort of, and like SNL, it can be a little up and down. But Andrew, I want to ask you first, what did you think of the 50th anniversary special? We don't have to, break down, but a high point, maybe a low point, maybe an in-between point, somewhere in there.
High point. I mean, I'm partial to Sandler. I'm partial to him playing music. I did like his song. I thought it was great. A lot of fun stuff in there. I thought it was up and down. I mean, I would say other high points too, were like nostalgic moments, more so than like the new stuff they were doing, which I feel like that's what people said back in 25 years ago in 25 when, it's always good to like look back and.
Oh yeah. Now 25 years ago, it was like, the cheerleaders, whatever, but Nick, the lounge singer to open the 25th anniversary special was pretty great. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. Oh, you know what I will say too, actually, I guess it was the night before on Peacock. Yeah. I didn't watch all of it, but the music.
Yeah.
Was pretty cool. Did you guys watch any of that?
I've seen some of it. I haven't seen all of it because I wanted to watch the special proper, but between the music special and the actual 50th anniversary special, Ron, what were some of your thoughts?
So two things, both from the special proper. First, the anxiety song is so dead on. It's been, let's see, I don't know, like almost 28 years since I was there. I still get stress dreams where I'm back at that desk. So, I can only imagine the people that have worked there for a number of years feel. The second thing, my absolute favorite part, and, I realize this is inside baseball. The fact that Adam Sandler shouted out both Nurse Teresa, who is a sweetheart of a woman. I loved working with her. She was so nice. And Speedy, who has been there since show one. He was hired when he was 19 years old. One of the first things that happened was he took me on a tour of the studio, told me a lot of stories, none of which I can repeat.
That's the best kind of stories. Yeah,
exactly. He was there in the 70s. That's all I will say.
That's literally all you need to say.
Yeah, that's all you need to know. But Speedy was in his wonderful guy. I loved working with him as well. Funny guy. So, and I just want to chime in. Like, people speculate on who's going to take over for Lorne or whatever. Yeah. Nobody is, and I'm going to tell you, if Lorne does decide to leave, it's going to be like 5 or 6 people taking over that job.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
None of them are going to have the gravitas that he has. So
yeah, exactly. And we talked a lot about that in the earlier conversation. There are people who probably could. Tom felt John Mulaney, who could be one. Seth Meyers is someone that people look at. I don't know that Tina Fey wants to do it. Colin Jost.
There are people that there are people that will get that show on the air, but nobody will replace Lorne Meyer. In fact, for years, people talk about, oh, well, you know, who replaced Johnny Carson? Was it Leno? Was it Letterman? No, the answer is Lorne Michaels.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you know, there was a lot of sort of thoughts about that, and Tom, I know that we got your thoughts on the 50th anniversary special yesterday and the future of the show, and you know, there were definitely a lot of fun things in there. One of the things that we shouted out about Sandler's song was name checking Melanie Hudsell, who that probably made her decade just even getting mentioned on the show. And it just shows that I've heard Adam Sandler described as a sweet boy by people who know him. And it seems like despite all the success and, you know, the empire, the Happy Madison empire that he's built, that is, you know, still true. One of the things I wanted to make sure to talk about before we start to say our goodnights, where we all stand on stage and wave and hold up signs that we've written out to people, and like Mike Myers will be wearing a Maple Leafs jersey, is we're talking about people getting into the show. And one of the unknown aspects of this by some people is there's a standby line on Saturday morning, and people start lining up on Friday night. And I would be in charge on Saturday mornings of the pages working the day. Like if somebody called out sick, which very often happened, you'd have to figure out how to reschedule those tours and that sort of thing. But you also distributed the standby tickets. And Andrew, I don't know how well you remember, but
I think I remember this. Yeah,
there was a time where you were there and you were like, oh, you're going to give out and you just wanted to watch me give out the standby tickets.
Yeah, I remember this.
Because I would go downstairs with the bundle of tickets, and I would just say basically something along the lines of, hello, everyone. We're about to hand these out in a moment. Now, I need you to know, most of you are not getting into the show. These tickets in my hand are for nothing. You will get these tickets, but you will probably not be seeing the show tonight. Now, and I would point to like 1 and 2 in the line. There's a very good chance you'll get in the show tonight. You can tell us if you want tickets to standby for the dress rehearsal or the live show. You do whatever you want. I'm going to recommend the dress rehearsal because we always have more of those available. And I would tell that to people all the time, even people who are able to pull strings and go. It's more fun to watch the dress rehearsal because you see earlier versions of the sketches and it's longer. So it was kind of like going down to hold court. And I do remember a time that Andrew came down just to watch me do it.
Yes.
It was,
so I remember this, and I think I remember it pretty well. Maybe there's a picture of it that'll disprove this.
I don't have one. So I of all the stuff I have pictures of, I don't have me handing out the stuff.
There's that video of it. I remember it being a very cold day. As a matter of fact, there might have been like some snow flurries like flying around and whatnot. And God, these people, I mean, talk about diehards. Those are diehard fans.
Well, there's that one guy who always had the seat number 1, and Lou. I believe he's passed away in the years since. I mean, but he went to every show for a long stretch. He always had number 1 on the standby tickets, and so he always got to go to the show. His name was Lou, you said, Ron?
Lou. Yeah, Lou. Yeah. I remember. I was actually just going to bring him up. Sweetheart of a guy. Really nice guy, I remember. And I remember actually... you know, when I was escorting John Lovitz out, he actually to his car, you know, it was like late Friday night, and you know, Lou was standing there. And he stopped. He's like, and Lovitz is like, "Oh my God, Lou, you're still here!" it was really cool. Everybody knew him.
Everybody knew Lou. Eric Connor.
And what was the rule? He always got in, right?
He did always get in.
Always let Lou in.
Yeah, let me read this comment from the chat. Eric asked, "What's the over/under of me being called the C word during that announcement?" This was the '90s. We didn't throw that word around as much back then. You know, now sure, but you know, back then, I think some people thought I was entertaining, but yeah, most people hated me. I was just trying to make them understand, like, look, you're in for a long day.
I don't think they hated you, but they just hated the reality that you were telling them, right?
Yeah, no, I think they hated me. I think it was hate the message and the messenger. And I'm sorry, Tom, what were you going to say?
Well, my question for you guys is, what made Lou special? There was a story. Was he like was he at the first audience? There was something about him where they always let him in.
No,
exactly.
he I remember him telling me that he was there at show 1, and I was just like, oh my God, what was that like? All of 25 years old, and tell me what it was like to see John Belushi live, blah blah blah.
He loved the show so much he almost went to an episode in the 1980-81 season, but he was like, "Man, it's all right. The streak can end here." And Eric is enjoying the lore of Saturday Night Live has no equal. These stories are great. Christian is C-word cool. Thank you, Eric. Tom's laughing a little too hard at that, but
I like the corny. I almost got into a fist fight telling the standby audience they weren't getting in once with Cressetta rebuttals. My old pal Cressetta Suttles. It is my favorite story to tell about her. The very short version of the story is I was working downstairs at Saturday Night Live, and for whatever reason, I remember the audience telling the dress rehearsal crowd to go home. They were very rough with me. They were just rough. And then I remember saying to one of the Lauren's assistants, a girl named Lauren, who had to be 5'10", blonde from Texas, and in this moment, the most beautiful girl in my life. And I said, I don't want to tell the audience to go home. I no longer get joy out of it. And then she says, well, buddy, if you fall off the horse, you got to get back on. I remember that exact quote. So then I go to tell the crowd to say goodbye, that they're not getting in. And there's a guy yelling at Cressetta extra hard. And I went in as a broken guy. I was tired. Normally, I would almost laugh at them as they were getting kicked away. But this guy was from another country, reminded me of my grandpa a bit. And I just held it. I gave him a piece of paper and I said, sir, I'm sorry. It says here on the list that the tickets aren't guaranteed. And then I go to walk away, and then I just feel right in my head, whoop, he crumpled the paper. And this has got to be a 65-year-old man. He crumpled the paper and threw it at my head. And I don't know what expression came across my face, but 3 security guys grabbed me and start pulling me back to the elevator. I'm like, I wasn't even ready to swing. I just made a look on my face like, what the F just happened? And they pulled me away as if I was about to start the fight.
They knew.
And maybe I was. And I just remember Cressetta yelling, me like, what the hell's going on? And there you go. And it's just, to this day, I blame Cressetta Suttles because it just feels like the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds fairly accurate. Yeah, and lots of fun times in that building, and stories we can tell, stories we can half tell, and stories that we just have to pretend never happened. Everything in between. But it was a fairly amazing time in our lives, getting to play dress up and wear ugly clothes and play TV and work on the biggest show on TV. And I thought it was a great time to try and get some of these familiar faces to me that I know all have great stories to share about SNL and, of course, some of the other times there in the building. I want to thank all of you for being here today. The great Tom Kelly making a tremendous drop in. It's like the old Tonight Show. Bob Hope just happens to be shooting on the lot and he walks in. Tom doing some targeted marketing for CVS Pharmacy right now. Well done. And I'm very nervous watching Tom drive, not because I'm not sure he's a great driver, but I hope the other drivers are all safe around him. We know Tom Kelly can be found at the Tom Kelly Show. But Andrew, if people want to find your content, including your episode with me, and what, it was a long time ago, you were one of the first people that I saw have an interview with RFK Jr. When he was still running, but like it was right after he announced, right?
Right after he announced. I mean, that's so a little podcast I do, Getting Caught Up. Many pages have been on. Tom Kelly's been on.
Yeah.
Christian, you've been on. Wade's been on. And a few others.
But hold on, we don't compare to RFK Jr. How did you get that booking, and how did I miss it?
Ah,
I asked, that's all you got to do sometimes.
Okay.
You just got to ask.
Good.
yeah. Which, by the way, is how people said, like, how did you get John Lovitz on your podcast? I asked.
Yeah. So yeah, it's Getting Caught Up. Podcast is on YouTube, Spotify. You can find it elsewhere, and you could just go and look on my Twitter. It's probably the easiest way to find it, or Google.
And,
But Christian, thanks for having me.
oh my
It's so
gosh,
much
yeah.
fun
Would
seeing
you-
you, talking to you, meeting you, Ron, and
Yep.
always
Same
great
here.
to see Tom
get to
Kelly.
hang out with Tom Kelly. Do you should we make a bet about the Mets and Phillies season, or have you learned your lesson?
No, I have learned my lesson. I do not bet on any Philly related sports.
Well, especially not after last season, which I wouldn't have taken that bet. But
I mean,
actually won it.
yeah.
I would have won it. Ron Motta, obviously, people should check out your past Blackcast appearance. I think that the very special episode, which I know Tom Kelly enjoyed. You enjoyed the episode that Ron.
Oh
was on.
God, yeah.
I have a couple more ideas that I'm going to email you if you want.
Is it more very special episodes?
Oh yes.
Oh,
if
great.
you want to read that, okay.
That's
I have nothing to plug.
561. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I have nothing to plug, but I just want to say my favorite thing about Saturday Night Live now is watching it with my teenagers. That's like the best.
Oh, yeah.
Best thing. It's like,
That's
Are they watching it, or are you forcing them to watch it? Are they watching?
No. That's like one of the things, when they're over here on a Saturday night, they'll like emerge from their rooms, put down their tablets, and be like, "Dad, turn on Saturday Night Live."
Wow,
We'll watch it together. It's really cool. It's
that's great. Yeah.
You just sort of reminded me about something. I get, we could have talked a lot about music. I don't know why this just popped in my head. Ron, you just said something that triggered it. One of the great things about being in 30 Rock during the week is that whoever the musical guest comes in, is they come in and they do a rehearsal. They do camera blocking is what they
on
call
Thursday
it.
afternoon. Yeah, that was what I went
on
to.
Thursday, right? Yeah.
That was the Jane's Addiction that I went to. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is so great to be able to go in. I think I saw U2 do it. I mean, I saw some big time, bands.
Yeah, I saw Aerosmith do that. We talked in our previous episode, the mashup that everybody'd like to forget, Jimmy Page and Puff Daddy doing the song.
That was another show I worked at.
Yeah, I was an intern for that.
That was before I got there. I actually like that mashup, by the way. I mean, I know Puff Daddy.
Do you still like it in 2025, or did you like it in?
I do actually, because whatever Puff Daddy, there's two things, right? I can still appreciate what he did.
Yeah, well, there's a cutoff date for some people.
Yeah.
People talk about Michael Jackson and they go like, you can stop like right before Dangerous, and then all that stuff's fine. I don't think he did anything. R. Kelly, it's a little tougher, but you put on the remix to Ignition, and then you're like, all right, I'm just gonna have to pretend I'm not listening right now.
Yeah, look, I'm compartmentalizing here, Christian. All right, but just in that little box in 8H, that I thought that was a cool.
It was a very cool place. I called in I did a favor for John McDonald, who a lot of us know. He worked at SNL for a while, and he one of the people I worked for when I was an intern was Tom Wilson. So his dad, Dave Wilson, directed the show for the first 20 years, and he worked in the research department. And when Tom was leaving, they wanted to get him a piece of the update set, and they wanted all the past update anchors who worked on it when he was there to sign it. So John shipped it out to LA, and I got Dennis, I got Nealon, and Horatio did like a few weeks when Amy Poehler was on maternity leave. So I got like 3 or 4 signatures. So as a favor, he got me tickets to SNL in 2014. And it was very hard to get tickets. Even then, now it's like impossible. So my fun fact, the reason I'm telling this story is that because of that show, I saw One Direction perform. Amy Adams and One Direction. So I didn't think I would ever see One Direction do 2 songs, but I sure did.
My daughter would be very jealous. Well, she's not into them much anymore.
No, but in that moment, she might have been like, "What do you mean?"
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So and you'd see some random stuff. I mean, I remember when I was an intern, everybody watching the feed in the commissary of the Backstreet Boys rehearsing and just laughing hysterically when they're doing this chair dance. Like, who are these assholes? They might have used a different word that people threw around back then that we don't say anymore, but we don't say it now. We saw Ricky Martin rehearsing, and he wasn't wearing shoes. So it's just, you see all this stuff and you're like, what is this? SNL used to be good for a couple rock bands a year back then. I think
a couple.
But it's not even that often anymore. Every once in a while they'll put on like a Foo Fighters or something.
I mean, that's the thing. In the 90s, it was actually great for all those alternative bands ended up coming on.
Yeah, I mean, just watching at home, like I'd be so excited that Nirvana.
That's what I'm talking about. Just watching it. Yeah.
I'm sure that Andrew stayed up late for Sharon Stone Pearl Jam in
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of that stuff, a lot of fun stuff, and then the music can be hard to find sometimes from those shows. That's why it's great that they did that music special.
Yeah.
And it's crazy when you see some of the people who have been on that show, but then also the ones who haven't, sometimes it's surprising. So, well, in any case, this was fun to do this again. And shout out in the chat, my friend Kaylee from Once Over with Kaylee is upset she jumped in late, but it's all right. You go ahead and subscribe to her channel, Once Over with Kaylee. I'll be recording something with her in just a little bit. And I also did a review of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 with her that I believe will be posted soon. People know Kaylee from showing up on this show. Other people know her from Who Are These Podcasts, where she's known as Lucy Tightbox. So that's my friend Kaylee. So we appreciate that. In any case, I want to thank Andrew Tavani, Ron Motta, and of course, the all capitalized, underlined, the Tom Kelly. We appreciate all of you being here and everyone in the chat. And like I've said when I've posted these links, any of our fellow former page friends who are like, hey, why didn't you invite me to this? I'll do more of these. SNL doesn't have its actual 50th anniversary until October 11th. So between now and then, I'll do as many of these as people want to do.
There's got to be some good stories out there, I'm telling you, from other people,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. And, I would love to talk to people who were pages in the 70s,
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Or even, when Eddie Murphy was there. Chris Tudhill, SNL 50. What a long, strange trip it's been. And Once Over with Kaylee says yay. And thank you to Chris Tudhill. In any case, thanks again to everyone. And we will see you soon, whether it's here on Geekscape or we'll see you next time on the Blackcast. Thanks again. And yeah, absolutely.